So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us to this Alma Insights ongoing webinar series, where today we're discussing the new and improved Alma overlap analysis tool. I am Yoel Kordic, Senior Librarian at Ex Libris, and we're joined today also by Uri Beladev from the development. And Uri will be able to answer any specific technical questions, for example, on future developments, and anything else which may arrive. And we're going to briefly be looking at this PowerPoint to explain what this tool is, how it differs from what we've had in the past, what its uses are, and primarily we will be inside Alma in order to do this. Those of you who are viewing the recording, if you look inside the description on the YouTube video, you will see links to this presentation and to the online help and to the Alma Insights page. And this is a good opportunity to advertise the Alma Insights page here. This is where you can sign up for the upcoming sessions. You can also see recordings of previous sessions. And on the Ex Libris YouTube site, you can also get all of the recordings of all of our sessions. This is the Ex Libris YouTube channel. So you're welcome to come here and view all of the recordings as well, simply by a simple search up here. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. One other small comment, if you have any questions or comments during the session, please send them in the chat. There is a chat and there's a Q&A. We will check them both, but please send them in through the chat. So the new overlap analysis tool. So this is something that came out very, very recently, the current release, the March 2022 release. It has new functionality for the overlap analysis, and it has a brand new interface. It's an overlap analysis of electronic resources, comparing electronic resources among collections, and those collections may be in the institution and or in the network zone. And when they're in the network zone, they may or may not be already activated by the institution. The main use cases which this supports are the ability to select a community zone collection as a source, something that did not exist in the previous version of the overlap analysis, or to select the entire institution zone. This is when comparing the electronic resources of the different collections. And also for those working in a network zone or with multi-campuses using a feature which is called available for, where electronic resources can be available for certain predefined groups, that is also supported. The specific use cases which we're going to be looking at today are there's three use cases. The first use case is an institution is considering purchasing a new collection. The collection is in the community zone. Institution is considering purchasing it. However, in order to know if it's worthwhile to purchase this collection, the institution wants to know, what are they really gaining? Because as we all know, it's quite common that separate electronic collections, even from entirely different providers, interfaces, will have overlap, especially if they're dealing in the same general academic discipline. So the institution wants to know, if I purchase this, what am I really gaining? How much do I already have? And how much is new? And among those which I already have, how much of the same coverage exists? And that's usually in the case of journals. From what year to what year do I have coverage in one collection? And from what year to what year will I be getting coverage if I purchase the new collection? So that's the first use case, where down here at the end, if there's a lot of overlap, perhaps it's not recommended to purchase. It might still be recommended to purchase. Maybe there's a lot of overlap, but those unique titles are very important. And if there's little or no overlap, then perhaps it is recommended to purchase. So that's the first use case. And we've got a little diagram here to show we can compare the resources in the entire institution zone. It's also possible to do a subset and compare those which are in the community zone, which the institution is considering purchasing, and then looking at what is the overlap. Then we have use case 2, which can be subdivided into 2 types. The institution is considering canceling an existing already purchased electronic collection. So they already have it. And they want to know, if I cancel this, if I no longer have it, how many titles am I really losing? Because the institution may have 100 different electronic collections, a lot of overlap, same titles, and a lot of different collections. They cancel one electronic collection. How many of those titles, in any case, exist already in other electronic collections? So there's really no loss if they cancel it, or there's a little bit of a loss. So in this case, they're comparing one of their electronic collections, which they already have, to the entire institution zone. That's option 1. Use case 2, option 1. And then use case 2, option 2, they're also considering canceling it, but instead of comparing the electronic collection which they want to cancel to all of the institution zone, to everything they already have, they're comparing it just to a subset of the institution zone. And these will all become more clear as we actually do them. This is just the introductory part. And then there's use case 3. This is brand new, didn't exist in the previous version of the overlap analysis. The institution receives a file from a vendor, and the file has identifiers and then all kinds of other information. It might have, for example, a column with ISBNs, or a column with LCC numbers, or a column with ISBNs, ISSNs, and they want to upload this file and see from the list of titles in this file, what do we already have, what don't we already have? And that's a very popular one, which from the first days of Alma, by my recollection, people have wanted this. So without further ado, let's jump in. That's enough with the PowerPoint. Let me just see the chat, see if anything came in that requires answering. No. Okay. So accessing the overlap analysis. Here I am in Alma. I'm in a standard, regular Alma March release, just like everybody else has. From the resources menu, I'm not in the configuration menu. I'm in the regular Alma menu. From the resources menu, under the subsection Advanced Tools, we have a link to the overlap and collection analysis. And from here, we can see all of the jobs which have already run. And we can click on one of these jobs which already ran and see the results. We're going to be talking about this screen more in depth later, so I'm not going to go into it now. Suffice to say that after viewing all of the jobs which have already ran, if a user clicks on one, he or she sees the parameters that were run in the job and the files which can be downloaded, the files which explain what titles are overlap or not overlap or partial overlap, etc. So let's run a job and let's see what's going to happen. And we're going to do now the same as what appears here in use case 1. So the institution now is considering purchasing a collection. They're considering purchasing Elsevier Science Direct eBooks, or Referex Miscellaneous. It's in the community zone. But before they purchase it, they want to say, wait a minute, maybe a lot of those titles we already have. Maybe we don't have any of them. Maybe 50% of them we have. This is in the case of eBooks. So in this case, the coverage information is either less important or non-existent. There are cases, I don't want to say it never matters with the ebooks, but generally speaking, the coverage information is not relevant for ebooks. But they want to know, what am I getting? What is going to be unique, does not already exist in my institution, and what will be new? So let's go do that. We're coming in here. We accessed, like we saw, resources, advanced tools, overlap, and collection analysis. And we're going to do new analysis. There's two options when we do new analysis. One is called compare collections, which, as the name states, we want to compare the content of electronic collection. The other one is lookup titles. We're going to get to that one in use case 3, because in use case 3, we have an input file. And like it says here, upload a file and check their existence in Alma. So let's click this compare collections. And now we'll start running the job. So first of all, we'll call it something. By default, it's called a new report and then the date. And I will call this the name of the collection we're going to check. And I will say parentheses, morning session, because we're going to have an afternoon session or an evening session to be more exact, depending on where you're located. But for us, it'll be an evening session later today. And then we can put a full long description here. Well, up to 255 lines, kind of like a Twitter tweet. I believe, is that the same limit as a Twitter tweet? I think it is. But in any case, up to 255 characters, or I should be more exact, if you put in Hebrew or another language which takes more bytes per character, it's a little less, but that's not really relevant. I don't think people need more than 255 anyway. So I'm going to say we compare here electronic collection this from CZ with what we already have in the IZ, the institution zone, what I already have in my repository. And I'll just fix this so it doesn't look like I don't know how to spell, and that should cover it. So now what do we want to do? We want to compare collections. Choose the collection source for which you want to evaluate the overlap. So now I'm going to go choose that collection, which we said is Elsevier Science Direct eBooks Referex Miscellaneous. So we'll click here. I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint for one moment just to show what we're doing. So we filled in both of these. Now we're going to go choose the collection, and we're going to go find it in the CZ and select it. So we'll click here to choose the collection. And we're doing the search. We're going to choose here the community, because we're going to search for this in the community. We can search by all different types of, just like the regular repository search, we can search by whatever we'd like. We can also go into the advanced search, but for our purposes, it will suffice to search for electronic collection name using the regular search. And then we'll select it. So here it is. We see that we haven't activated it. There's no icon here that it's been activated, and select. Okay, so now we see that this is the one we're going to compare to. And what do we want to compare it with? And we want to compare it with the entire institution zone. We could compare it, like I said at the beginning, with just a subset. Maybe I want to compare it with 3 or 4 very expensive collections that I want to make sure those are really worthwhile, or for whatever reason, a subset. But we're going to compare it with the entire institution zone. Then we have various match methods. Now, for an ebook collection, which this is, ebooks, of course, I wouldn't choose the ISSNs. I could choose ISSN, ISBN, title, Library of Congress Kolna, LCCN, let's just say LCCN, or the 035. I'm going to choose title because I want to show it uses a normalized title, and we'll see some examples of that. Include date coverage, not relevant here, but I'm just going to leave it anyway. It'll be blank columns if there's no coverage, as is typically the case for ebooks. And let's run it. So we're clicking generate. Generate here up on top, it's running. Now, this is part of the what we call the next generation user interface. Various parts of Alma are going into this next generation user interface. By the way, next week we're having a session on the repository search developments in the Alma 2022 roadmap, and we'll see more of this next generation. You'll see here that it says 0% because it hasn't run anything yet, and it says here pending. Automatically it changed to in process right here. I didn't click refresh or anything. That means it's already running. I don't need to click up here the refresh. I'm not clicking it. Soon we'll see that this is going to move along from 0%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and be done. Meanwhile, while that's happening, let's go back to the PowerPoint and explain more in depth what we've done. So we opened up the overlap analysis. We chose that we wanted to choose a collection from the community zone. So we clicked the option to choose the collection which we want to evaluate. We searched the community zone for this electronic collection. We selected it. Then we chose to compare it with the entire institution zone. And we also pointed out that we could have compared it with other collections in the community zone and other collections in the institution zone. Then we chose how do we want to do the match between the titles in the source collection and the titles in our institution. And then we did choose the include date coverage, even though it's really not relevant here. We click generate to start it. And now let's go back. And it changed automatically to completed successfully. That's ours, morning session. I never clicked the refresh, so everything's done. So now let's go in and take a look at what we've got here. So I'm just going to click this and it'll automatically open. So what do we have here? We have who ran it. We've got the name. We've got the description. Took 1 minute and 11 seconds. Not bad. So altogether in the collection, there were 384 titles. Of those 384 titles, 35.94% or 138 titles, that's the blue here. You see we've got a little graph here. I don't know how good the colors are going through on the webinar, but we've got a graph here so we can also see. Sometimes there are 3 files, by the way, depending on how we run the report. So we have 138, which is 35.94% with complete overlap. Then we have 246 with no overlap. In other cases, we're going to see when there is coverage information. The next example we're going to do is on journals. So then we might have complete overlap, no overlap, and partial overlap, because the partial overlap is when it's the same title, but the coverage years only have a partial overlap. There might be one from 1948 to 1967, and there might be another one from 1965 to 1970. So there's just a little overlap from 1965 to 1967, just as an example. That would be a partial overlap, but we're going to see that later on. And then we have here what we did, all of the information that was run. It says that we compared this collection with the entire institution zone. This is the match method we used. We're not going to discuss this available for group. That's relevant, like I said at the beginning, for institutions who have multi-campuses or network zones and use a functionality called available for. Then we can download the files, and that's what we're going to do now. So here's the first file we'll download. We got this little download link here. So we're going to download titles of portfolios with complete overlap. So we'll download here. And here it is. Now I've got tons of these files because I've been running this forever. Well, not forever, but for several days internally giving presentations as well. So we're going to parentheses 7 here because it's the 7th one. And let's go take a look at this. So this is titles with complete overlap. So let's see what we got here. Solid state chemistry. The identifier is solid state chemistry. The identifier here is the title. We'll see in the future that the identifier might be an ISSN, might be LCCN, et cetera, but in these cases, it's always the title. And it's the normalized title. For example, this Xbox 360 became lowercase, the slash at the end got removed. If there's an ampersand, it gets removed. All kinds of different characters get removed. It gets normalized. Like in many other cases, there's a normalized title. Here, for example, the colon before the word attribute got removed, because if we're comparing it with another title that doesn't have the colon, we want the match. In any case, so let's take an example here. We got the solid state chemistry, which is the first one. And it says here, this is the MMSID in my institution, the MMSID. In the source set is the one we're comparing it from. And it gives us the portfolio ID, so we can go search it if we want. Then it tells us in the target, so it found it in another one, which is called eBook Central Academic Complete UKI Edition. It found another match with this portfolio ID. And if we come into Alma and we were to search, for example, by electronic portfolios, by the title, for that title, I thought I copied that title, but I guess not. Let's go check that title all the way at the beginning. That is solid state chemistry. So if we were to come do a search for solid state chemistry here, okay, so we see that it's not, it's in the one in the institution, in the community zone that we searched for, but like my Excel file stated, I already have that in my institution. Here I'm on the institution tab. I search here by institution. I already have this in eBook Central Academic Complete UKI Edition. So this exists in the electronic collection, which is in the community zone that I'm considering purchasing. And I see that of whatever number of titles we had there, that overlap, I already have it in my institution in the eBook Central Academic Complete UKI Edition. And that's exactly what it said here. This is the first one here. It's in this Elsevier Science Direct eBooks Referex Miscellaneous, which we searched, a source set, which we searched, we selected from the community zone. I did page down by accident. And it already also exists in eBook Central Academic Complete UKI Edition, right here. And that's exactly what we see if we come into Alma and do the search. So that's an example. We haven't yet looked at the ones that don't overlap, but that's an example of looking at the ones that do overlap. By the way, also in this file, there's another tab which is called Analysis Information, which states all of the parameters that we used when we ran it, which is extremely useful. We don't have to say, wait a minute, which job did this file come from? And then go back to the list of jobs that we already ran and start figuring it out. Everything's already in here, so we know exactly how it ran. Very useful. We also see the matching percentage, how many of those titles matched. Everything that we can see in the user interface, we see here as well. Okay, so that's the ones that match. Then I'm going to close this. Then if we go back to the job, back to resources, advanced tools, overlap, and collection analysis, we'll go back into this job here. And we also have a file here titles of portfolios with no overlap. So these are ones which, if we did purchase this collection, they'd be brand new. So 64%, or 246. It's nice also that it gives us the percent and not just the number. We don't have to figure out, wait a minute, that's more than half. It's already telling us 64.06%. We also have a visual on it. So if we were to purchase this, we would get 246 new titles. There's 384 titles in that collection in the community zone. But if we purchase it, we'd get 246 in actuality, 246 new titles, because the others we already have. And let's take a look at that one as well. We'll click here for the download. And here we are, titles of portfolios with no overlap. Let's click that. And so these are ones which only exist in the collection which we're considering purchasing, which is in the community zone. So what do we have here? The title that was used for comparison, the title which is normalized. Here's an example here. For example, it gets rid of the dashes. 69 instead of 6-9 gets rid of the colon. There's other places you may recall from the physical electronic overlap analysis in Alma Analytics. We do the same thing. We take this normalized title. There's places all throughout Alma where we take the normalized title. Here too, we made everything lowercase, get rid of the colons. So anyway, this one here is unique. This polymer electrolyte fuel blah, blah, blah does not already exist. And I see here that it's from this source set, which is the one we searched for, Elsevier Science Direct ebook Referex Miscellaneous. And here there's no coverage, so all of this is irrelevant, but we will see later examples with coverage. This is an ebook, so it doesn't have them. And that's it. So let's go back to the PowerPoint, look at the rest of this scenario in the PowerPoint, and then we'll stop, look in the chat, and take questions. Back to the PowerPoint. So we got to the point where it completed successfully. We saw the percentages and the absolute amounts of what did overlap, what did not overlap. We saw that within the job, we can see all of the parameters of what we ran. We downloaded these files in order to analyze them. We saw that it's matching on the title because that was what we chose in our example. Our next example, by the way, we're going to choose ISSN. And then we looked at the file, and this is an example of the file. And now the ultimate goal of this, it's not just an academic exercise, you know, to see how we can make a code which compares this with this from all different places. The actual use here is now the institution can make the decision. They can say, wait a minute, if we purchase this, we'll get 246 new titles. Maybe we should check some other collections and see if it's more worthwhile, things we don't already have. Or let's look at those 138 titles we already have. Maybe we don't need those because if we're buying this new one, why do we need also to purchase these other ones? The information's there. Now it needs the human processing, we'll call it. Now this data needs to be processed in order to make that decision. Definitely though, evidence-based decision making. That's what we always stress in analytics, especially here also, evidence-based decision making. The library can now make the decision how to use the funds based on solid evidence of what would and would not be gained by purchasing this new collection. Okay, I'm going to stop and look at the chat for a moment. Let me close that. We don't need that. Go to the chat and let's see what we got. Someone states, and by the way, you can send in anything you want. We don't mention people's names, so feel free to say what you'd like. I'm just going to put this into a Word document because sometimes not everyone can see it, or if it's long, it's someone might not know. What did he say? You know, etc. Okay, so Control V. Okay, so someone says, would it be good to have the collection instead of the select button, have a box and it turns yellow, like when you select for other parts of Alma, e.g. attaching records to a Leganto citation. The collection, instead of the select button, have a box and it turns yellow. Okay, that could be a nice idea to take into consideration, a box that would turn yellow. Okay. Someone says, what if the title is in two local collections? Do you get two rows in the output? Oh, Uri, who's with me, Uri, if there's anything you want to jump in here, feel free. Maybe we're already planning to make a yellow box, or when the title's in two collections. But by the way, let's wait on that one, because unless you want to jump in, Uri, we're going to do another example with a journal where there's multiple identifiers, etc., and we'll see how it goes into the Excel. But Uri, do you want to say anything so far?
Yeah, regarding the first question that you're presenting now, we already got feedback from our early access customer that they asked that we align the selecting process between the phase that you select the source collection and the phase that you select the target collection. This is why we have the select box instead of what they are suggesting here.
Uh-huh.
Regarding the second question,
Which,
I
by the
guess
way,
you're gonna
excuse me,
talk.
Uri, came in a third question also, same as the second collection. Go on.
Okay, you said you're gonna talk about it,
No,
but
no,
I
go
will
ahead.
just
Go ahead.
okay. I will just give you a preview that once we have more than one matching collection in the report Excel file, you will see on the target columns more than one matching collection or portfolio, as Yoel will show you soon.
And as a matter of fact, let me check here. We may already even have one of those. Sorry, I hit the wrong icon there.
I saw it when you
Yeah,
displayed the
yeah,
Excel
yeah.
file.
So it's going to be with the complete coverage overlap. Let's take a look. So if we come here, these are the ones with overlap. So if we come here to the targets,
I will
okay, so
just
here's an example.
I will
You've,
just
oh, sorry, go
I would
ahead.
just say, yeah, for everyone to take a look at the headers of each column. It says either source or target. If it says source, it means the collection we're comparing. And if it says target, it means the collection that we are comparing it with. In your example right now, the target is the entire institution zone collection. This is why we see here a collection from the institution zones.
Into the specific question, what happens if it matches multiple collections? You can see it right here. The example I'm on now, line 5, it matches several collections. For example, it matches Gale Cengage Virtual Reference Library, and it also matches one in CCC Get It Now, and also in Science Direct CSIC.
Yes, and I would like to add something, Join, if you could scroll to the right just a little bit, so you'll
Sure.
see some more columns of the, yeah. As you can see, when we have multiple matches, like in row 4 or row 5, you can see that each is wrapped with special characters, like curly bracket and
Yep.
parentheses. This is in order to align the information that we will keep seeing in every other column, which will be parallel. I'm meaning the first information that we see for the first curly brackets will have the corresponding information in every other column.
Yep.
Okay, if I wasn't clear, maybe you all can
Okay, yeah. So
expand it
here, the
better.
first line, Gale Cengage Virtual Reference Library, relates here to the first Gale group. And the second one here, CCC Get It Now, relates to the CCC Get It Now. And
Exactly.
the delimiter, we'll call it, is the curly brackets or squiggly brackets or whatever the official word is. Okay, I think we need to go on. We only have an hour. And we got two other ones we want to do. I'm just going to see if there's anything urgent. Someone says, I would like to know the publishing year for the non-existing titles. Is that possible? So currently there is no publishing year in this file to know what it is. Okay, let's go on. Where were we? So let's go to use case 2. Use case 2, which we divided into 2 options, option 1, option 2. We're just going to do option 1 today. By the way, let me point out too that you can play with this in your institution all you want because it doesn't do any updates to anything. You use it and all it's doing is making reports. You can test it all kinds of different ways. It doesn't cost anything and it doesn't update any data. It just makes reports. So you can test it out as much as you'd like. Okay, so now the institution has a electronic collection, Taylor and Francis Library and Information Science Collection. And they've activated it already from the community zone. So I'm in my institution and I have this Taylor and Francis Library and Information Science Collection. I should actually search this in my institution zone, but I'll just switch tabs once we get the results. Here it is. And I'm considering now canceling it. But before I cancel it, I want to know what in this electronic collection do I already have? Because if I cancel it, there's 51 portfolios in it. If I cancel, am I losing 51 portfolios? Or maybe there's a good amount there that I already have anyway. So let's see that one. So we're going to do this. This time we're going to compare by the ISSN. And again, we'll choose compare collections. Let's jump right in and start doing it. So resources, advanced tools, overlap and collection analysis. And we'll start a new analysis. And we'll choose again, compare collections. The third use case, we're going to upload a file, but here we're still going to compare collections. And this time, when we choose the source, we're going to choose the institution zone. But let's first fill this in. So this will be this one, and I'll call this again morning session. Morning. You can see, by the way, right here in this column, it automatically gets updated. You see here where it says morning? I don't know if you see my mouse, but it says morning on the left. When I start typing on the right session, it automatically updates on the left. Okay, so that's morning session. And now in my description, I'm going to say we are considering canceling this, but first want to see what already exists in other collections. Okay, I used 153 out of 255 characters, I can see. Okay, so that's the title and description. Now we're going to choose the source. Choose. This time, unlike previous time, we're going to search in the institution, because now we're going to compare a collection we already have in the institution with the rest of the institution. And we said we could also compare with a subset. So let's search for that collection. Here she is, and select. Okay. Now, what do we want to compare it with? We want to compare it with, if we had this selected collections from the institution zone, then we have an option here to choose which collections we want from the institution zone. Excuse me. But we're going to compare with the entire institution zone. And you can see that little box there to select from the institution is gone because I'm saying the entire institution zone. Got a little pop-up here. Includes all electronic collections. And this time we're going to choose the ISSN. ISSN. Then we're going to generate. Okay, so now that's running. Here it is. It says pending, says 0%, that will automatically update without me needing to come here. But let's go take a look. So let's see what we've done. So we gave it a name and a description. We chose that we want to get something in the institution zone already. So we searched for this collection in the institution zone. We compared it with the entire institution zone. We chose that we want to match by the ISSN. We had selected include date coverage. I don't know if I pointed that out actually. The default is to include date coverage in the comparison, and we chose that. Then we click generate and the job ran. Let's go take a look. Now it says in process, and before it said pending, now it says completed successfully, automatically. I just want to go in here and point out, so we chose here, include the date coverage in the comparison, because I don't think I pointed that out before. Maybe I did. In any case, so what do we have now? 48 or 97.96 have complete coverage overlap. So that's a lot. So maybe we could cancel this. Pure evidence-based decision making. We're only losing one title if we were to cancel this. Let's take a look. By the way, there's a nice little description here. Titles of the portfolios of the electronic collections selected for comparison. That's the source that are part of the electronic collection compared with the target. Our target was all of the institution zone. Let's take a look here. So all of these have complete coverage overlap. Let me close my Excel entirely and reopen that. When I have Excel open, sometimes it opens the wrong one. Okay, so these are ones with complete overlap. I've got the title, the identifiers. We know the source set is the Taylor and Francis. That's the one we looked at. We're looking at library acquisitions, practice, and theory. The identifier now is the ISSN, whereas previously the identifier was the title. This is the MMSID in my institution. And the source, this is when it's available. This is my coverage. And then I know I'm comparing it with the rest of the institution zone. And again, I have the multiple collections. And I've also got here the coverage of each of these. And like Ori said, so that we have this CCC Get It Now, the first one relates to this first one here, available from 2000. And the Scholars Portal relates to the second one, available from 1996. So if I were to come in now, just for the fun, as they say, and search now for this electronic portfolio by this title, I can see that I've got it in these other ones. CCC Get It Now was one we saw in the Excel file. So I can see here that I've got it in these other electronic collections. And let me just come here. I can also see if it's active or not. So if one were not active, I could, oh, that's a source set. I could come along also and filter out by whatever. All of these filters here, by the way, that's built in. It's part of the Excel as it comes. You don't need to start playing around here with the Excel, with the source, filter, etc., sort and filter options. All of these little arrows on top, which do the filtering, are already in here. So you can filter quite easily just by clicking on one of these. And again, like the other one we saw, we've got the column with the analysis information. Let's take a look at the other file, which is the unique, which in this case is only one. So again, we'll go back to the resources, advanced tools, overlap, and collection analysis. And we'll take that first one, which you ran just a short time ago. So this is this is partial. So actually, we're only partially losing one file. Excuse me, partially losing one title. So I think we can cancel it, but that's the library's decision. This is all a fictitious library anyway. So now this one here has a partial overlap. We have it already available from 1997 to 2007, and we've got it already in the institution, and it's going to be partially overlapped. Okay, it's 9:46 local time. I want to make sure we get that input file because it's very important. That's one that everybody kept talking about, but we do have one more comment here. Let's go take a look at this comment. I'll put this out into the Word document as well. I think it would be a good idea to add addition of books and publications for books and journals. I didn't mention it in the early access phase. These will help users to distinguish between various of editions and if certain title is published by two publications. Okay, thank you for that input. We will take that into consideration. Or Uri, do you want to make any comment on that nice suggestion?
No, but
Okay.
we can consider it.
Yeah, sure, sure. Okay, so let's move on with the big one. Not the big one, but they're all big ones. But this is really since day one of Alma, people have been asking about this one, and that's to use an input file. So I'm going to go to the online help for a minute to talk about that input file. This is the online help. I sent out links in the chats at the very beginning. I'm going to send them out again just in case somebody doesn't have them. This is to the online help. This is going to be to the presentation that I'm using. Those of you watching the video on YouTube who unfortunately couldn't join us live, check the description in the YouTube video. And here. So as far as an input file goes, I'm going to say EISS. Okay, so this is a lookup of titles by analysis. And the columns which you can have in the input file for the identifier part can be EISBN, ISBN, EISSN, ISSN, just like this, or LCCN, or title. And then it says a couple of more restrictions. It can't be bigger than 10 megabytes. What kind of additional columns it can have. The Excel file may contain columns with additional information after the identifier column on the first sheet only. So it's looking at the first sheet. If the Excel file has several sheets, it's looking at the first sheet and it's looking at the first column. And the column titles can be whatever is here. And I have an example here. I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second while I open my example, just in case. Okay, there we are. I'm going to open my file. Okay. And I will share again. Okay. So let's start with the PowerPoint and then we'll jump in. I'm not going to go through everything there. Use case 3. Okay, so the institution now gets a file from the vendor which has the title and some other identifier. It may not be from a vendor. Maybe it's downloaded somewhere. Maybe a friend sent it. You have a file from whatever source. Typically, it comes from a vendor. That's what we've heard from our partners and from our experience. But in any case, the institution has a vendor with the identifier and more information. And we have a file that looks like this. First column is that EISSN, EISSN, ISSN, and then we have the other ones there. And it can have other columns as well. And this time we're going to choose the lookup titles. I'm going to stop for one more second, excuse me, one more second while one moment. I'm just going to switch local directories here. Okay. So this is my file. Let me share again. Okay. So I've got an input file like this. It's got the EISSN, ISSN, the column like we saw is necessary when we looked in the online help. Then it has a title. The ones here at the bottom, just to not simulate, to make it like I want to make sure I have titles that don't exist. I just made up some ISSNs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. And I made up some titles. These are ones I really do have in my institution with these. So if I take this, it's called input file from vendor for overlap collection analysis. I'm going to upload this one and compare it. Let's do that. So new analysis. This time, unlike the previous ones, we'll choose lookup titles. I'm going to go a little faster here. We got 7 minutes, and I'm going to say compare file from vendor morning. Then we'll say I am comparing from vendor. Maybe I have a vendor called A hen. To see what we already have. Okay, then select or drag an Excel file. So I'll come here and I'll go to where I need to go. And this is called input file, INPUT, oops, input file, there we go. Let me save this somewhere. I'll save as. I'm going to save this as morning, just so okay. So it'll be easier for me to choose now. There we go. Okay, so now I chose my input file. Now I could select a group. These are my available 4 groups, but we're not going to get into that right now. That's, I said, for network zone consortia and for multi-campuses that use the available 4 groups. What do I want to compare it to? This is a huge development. For those of you who have wanted to do this in the past will know this is a huge development. I can now compare this with community zone records even, ones I haven't even activated, but ones I know I could potentially activate from the community zone, or with the institution zone electronic resources, including ones which I have activated from the community zone. I'm going to choose report output of 1 Excel line per match. I could make 1 Excel line per identifier. And that's all we need, and generate. And there we go. Pending, that'll change to running, and then it'll change to completed successfully. But let's go take a look at the PowerPoint just to see what we did. So we chose, unlike the previous examples, we chose now lookup titles. We gave it a name and description. Then we chose that file, input file from vendor for overlap and collection analysis. We compared it with the institution zone, but we saw that we could compare it if we wanted with the community zone. Then we chose if we want one Excel line for each match or one Excel line per identifier. Like I said before, you can run this as much as you want. It's all only doing reports. You're not updating anything, so you can play around with it as much as you'd like and see the different formats. The job completed, and then we go take a look. And here also, completed successfully. Let's go take a look. Okay, so what do we see here? 10 or 62.5% input file titles were found in the institution zone. So of this file, let's go take a look one more time at that file. There we are. Okay. Of this file, 10 of them were found. Sorry about all those Word documents back here. And then I have here the input file. So I have a link to that file that I used. And here I can download. Let me get rid of, I got a little picture here. Here I can download the list of the ones that it matched on. So I just clicked it. Here it is. These are the ones, hold on. These are the ones that matched. These are the ones with a single match. You see the column that says single match? The sheet that says single match? These have a single match. If I were to come along and search for this, that was in the input file. And I see that I already have this, one single match. Then we also have a column here, excuse me, a sheet here from multi-match. So these are ones which exist in the input file and exist multiple times in my institution. And I have a line for each of them. If you recall, there was an option there to choose different formats. So I've got one line per match. I got it once in Library and Information Science Collection, and I got it once in ProQuest Central. And I can see that here as well if I search. Two of them, one in ProQuest Central, one in Library and Information Science Collection. Just in case I didn't trust Alma, I can go in and search, but of course it's giving me the same. Then I've got ones here with no match. Those are the ones I added with these fictitious ISSNs. And then, of course, we have the analysis information. Okay, so I know what I ran. So that's 9:59. Let's go see what we got in the chat here. And let me go up here. Somebody says, this is excellent. Oh, thank you very much. Someone says, this is excellent as doing this in analytics does not show me what did not match. Exactly. Exactly. Thanks for pointing that out. We have the option in analytics via data visualization. You can upload a file, but there you get what did match. Here you also get what did not match. Okay, so this will be, well, let me see if we can get one more comment here. Somebody asks, what if the vendor file had two columns, one with ISSN and one with EISSN? Are we able to compare both at once? I think you'd need two rows, but Uri, do you want to comment on that last one?
Yeah, we can compare with both. This is why the column name is EISSN/ISSN.
But would you need a separate row for each one?
Yes.
Okay, so you could do that, but you'd need a row, a separate row for each of them. One row with the ISSN and one row with the EISSN. It wouldn't be one row with both identifiers in one column.
What I mean is that you can mix EISSN and ISSN in the same identifier column.
Yeah, but you'd need one row for each of them.
One. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
All right, so that brings us to the end. It looks like we got all the chats in any case. So thanks everybody for joining us. We will be posting the recording of this to all of the relevant locations where we post our recordings. and we will update you via the Alma list that the recording has been posted. And thanks everyone for joining. Have a nice day.